Hello again. As you can see, I've now got the antenna set up in the local park. I'm using my 10-meter mast for the big antenna, for the 60-meter antenna, to get it nice and high off the ground. We can follow it down here. You can see there we've got our current balun just hanging from a branch in the tree, and that stretches out up to the top and to the hedge at the end. I like to keep the ends as high off the ground as possible. And then of course I come down, I've got my measuring equipment here. It's a bit windy today, so I hope the wind doesn't disturb us too much. I've already been cutting quite a bit off it. I've already taken about 2 meters off the antenna. I'm just having a look at it with the sark here. I don't know how well this will go. I might have to do some yeah, oh, we can just about get it there. Good. As you can see, F-res is currently at about 4.5, and the full wave on 30 meters is down as low as 1.5 to 1. So the tune on the full wave harmonic is quite low. You could use that without any kind of tuner. Anyway, I'm going to finish trimming this and take some snapshots, and then we can have a look when I'm back inside. I've also got a smaller antenna which I'm going to tune up as well, so we can have a look at that as well. Okay, I've finished tuning the antenna, cutting it down, and I got some good news and bad news. I was able to get a nice span for maybe 10 megahertz and 21 megahertz. Unfortunately, it doesn't line up quite as nicely as when you make these antennas for the other harmonic bands, say 40, then 20, and we'll look at the plots later on and see that. And I also found when I came to try and tune up on 80 meters with my KX2, it couldn't manage it. I'm just going to try again here and we'll see what it does. Yeah, the best I can get is 2.1 to 1 on 80 meters. Now that's not bad, but it's not as good as the other smaller antenna, which when I had that on, it's obviously cut for 40 meters and it tunes up very nicely on 60 meters. It goes 1 to 1. Now what I think is happening here is a result of this balun. The balun I've made here is actually too good, and it's not letting any RF through at all. So when I actually try to tune it up, we'll have a look at the other one. I hope I've got my other antenna here. If we look at the balun on my normal 40 meter antenna, it's much smaller, and I'm thinking possibly what's happening is that's letting a little bit of RF current through, and so it's allowing it to tune up on a lower band. With my new antenna, because it's not letting any RF through, unfortunately it won't tune on 80 as I had hoped it would do. Well, there you go. Well, it'll still be a very nice antenna for 60 meters and above. I've found it's a bit long on 60. Well, I've left it a bit long on 60 and a little bit short on 30 meters. I found that's probably the best compromise. Okay, so I've now trimmed down my smaller antenna that was originally for 40, and I've cut it for F-res at 10.1 megahertz, and I'm gonna now see how it goes. I didn't have to cut as much off this one, it was a lot quicker, and I've hooked it up to the KX2. I've no idea if this is going to work or not, but I want to see if it will tune up on 7 megahertz. So here's the moment of truth. Let's see how it does it. Oh, 1 to 1, perfect. That is great. And it's also better because it means I haven't lost 7 megahertz as a result of cutting this down. It still works. I'm just going to go down to 5 actually, just as an experiment. Let's see if it will tune up on 5 megahertz, who knows. This is a quarter wave we're trying here. No, it won't do 5, that's fine, no problem there. Let's go back up to 10 now and tune it here. Okay, yeah, very easily it gets all the bands. So we've got 40 to 28 megahertz. Of course it will tune up fine on 28, I'm sure of that. There we go, 280619. Let's tune up here. as I hope it will. Yeah, there we go, 1-to-1, no problem. It just had to hunt around a bit. So we've got all the bands, 40 meters up to 10 meters for an antenna that's about 15 meters long. It's a very short antenna, relatively speaking. It's quite a heavy V, so it's quite a steep angled inverted V, but it's working nicely. Okay, I'm on the Patcherberg today, and I've just got the 60 meter End Connected Windom set up here, and what I thought I would try is grounding the KX2. So here we go, I have my KX2 set up here, and I've got the ground cable which leads off to a barbed wire fence, and I just want to see if grounding the KX2 will help it tune up on 80 meters. So let's have a look. Still 2.2-to-1, try again. Go on the extended tuning cycle. Okay, so as you can see, grounding the radio isn't going to make any difference at all. I think the problem here lies with, again, as I said, the balun. We're just too well isolated from the antenna. So we're going to have to stick with 2.2. Maybe it will work. I might try it on lower power, maybe 5 watts, and see how it likes it, because 2-to-1 isn't too bad for a rig like the KX2. We'll give it a go at lower power, but for now we're just going to have to call it quits and accept that the lowest band is the 60 meter band FRES. So not a bad loss, but not quite everything we hoped for. As you can see, it's a beautiful day up here on the Patcherberg. The sun is shining, and we're still going to have a lot of fun on 60 meters and above. After much trimming and measuring, I've finally got all the data collated, and we're going to have a look at the short antenna first, the End Connected Windom for 40 to 10 meters with FRES at 30 meters. Now I actually cut off 252 centimeters of antenna wire, and I ended up with a total length of 13.72 meters. So remember, I started off with 13.5 meters of PVC antenna wire and then shortened it down. So you could maybe start off with just 12.5 meters of antenna wire, and you won't have to do as much trimming. But on the other hand, leaving it long is good, because you might want to try tuning it and measuring it at the same time to see and get a balance between what your transceiver will tune up and what is the best resonant point. So there we have the final measurements, and I've put the ferrites in here, FT11443 and an FT8243 if you're interested in making this antenna. RG178, 2.74 meters, and PVC antenna wire after trimming will be about 10.98. Like I say, leave it long to begin with. Let's have a look at some SWR plots for this. I'll open them up here. Let's find our file. Here we go. So the first one should be the wideband. Yes, it is. And here we can clearly see FRES on 30 meters. And we've got marker 2. That's saying, oh no, sorry, that's marker 3. We've got an SWR of 3.18. So it's high, as you would expect if you have no Ruthroff or voltage balun at the feed point, but absolutely nothing that your average tuner can't handle. What gets a bit tricky is here at 40 meters, because as you remember, 40 meters is the 3/8 wave, and I wanted it to transmit and tune up on 40 meters. It does do, it manages it very well. Even though the SWR is 11.12, so quite a high SWR, still tunes up 1-to-1, and it transmits. Before we have a look at the logs from yesterday, we'll have a look. I just want to show you the 2 points. You'll notice that these your points of resonance don't really line up as well as when the antenna is cut for 40 meters, because then 40 and 20 line up better, not perfect, but they certainly line up better than 30 and 15. So it's a bit of a compromise here. I've had to make it a little bit short on 30 and it's a little bit long on 15. But that's fine. Let's see, 15 marker 4, that is SWR2, just over 2. I mean, that's still fine considering there's no voltage balun there. And all across we see it's generally below about, on average, well, it's below about 7. The highest, of course it gets very high when it's short, but here just after 30 meters what we're looking at 7.5. So it's all manageable SWRs right along the curve. Let's have a look at let's zoom in a bit to the 30 meter section. Here we go, and as you can see, I could have got just a bit better. Minimum SWR 2.99, but like I say, I nudged that up. I trimmed it just a little bit to nudge that up and bring 21 megahertz, a little bit more resonant there. And interestingly enough, it says here at marker 2, now it's saying the SWR is 10.9, so a little bit different from the first snapshot, but around 11 for that 3/8 wave. And like I say, as you saw, the KX2 had no trouble with that. Okay, so let's have a look at the log from yesterday. This was the first one, the catalogue. Started off on 10 megahertz where it's resonant, and as you'll notice, it's got 599, a lot of 599 straight in with a summit to summit at 599, a few 529s, then 55, 599. So I'm getting really good. I mean, obviously I don't like to try and judge antenna performance from just one activation. It's not really very reliable, but on the other hand, there is a noticeable improvement in my signal reports here on 10 megahertz, as you would expect. And on 7 megahertz, where it's a 3/8 wave, now we're down to 539, 449, 339. So I'm getting through, but a noticeable degradation. And I would say when it was longer, when it was originally resonant on 40 meters and it was a 3/8 on 60, my reports were a little bit better. They weren't this low, so that's interesting. It's not radiating too well on 7 megahertz, although that's not really, I don't really mind that at all. I'm very happy because whatever I've lost on 7 I've made up for on 10. So that's really good. And then on the next summit I had a look on 14, had to go on 14, and yeah, I'm getting fairly good reports. 559, we're about fair to middling there on 14, on to 10 megahertz, and yes, some 59, but we're all across the board, it seems to be down to 559 even on 10 megahertz. So like I say, it's not always easy to judge these things. Let's have a look at the resonant antenna for 80 to 10, the longer version, and I took this up onto where is it, the Patcherberg. This was the final activation I did yesterday. The total length now after trimming is 27.3 meters. That means I used 5.475 meters of RG178, used 21.83 meters after trimming of PVC antenna wire. I took a whopping 5.17 meters off this wire. So certainly you could start with less wire, but we'll talk about that as we go on, because we're going to have a look at the SWR plots for that now. Here we go. So let's have a look at the wide span first. Here we go. And it's a fairly similar picture. Again, you'll notice that your harmonic bands don't line up as nicely as they do when it's a 2040 antenna, a 4020 antenna. Here I'm a bit long on 60, I'm a bit short on 30. Not bad on 15, so I've got the dip just about there on 15. As to what that is, no idea. Yeah, so that's not bad. What's interesting to note is, of course, this is the 3/8 on 80. Marker 1 says that is 11.1 VSWR, much the same as the shorter antenna, much the same as the SWR at 40 meters, around 11. As you remember, it wouldn't tune up. It wouldn't tune lower than about 2.1 to 1, which I found very interesting. And of course I've been racking my brains thinking about why that might be. And at first I thought maybe there's too much impedance and the antenna is too well isolated from the rig, and so it can't use that bit of feeder as a counterpoise or anything like that. Of course that's possible, but then I thought maybe it's to do with the internal tuner on the KX2, that it's not quite as efficient at this very bottom frequency as it is at about 60 meters. So maybe there's a drop off in the amount of SWR it can handle down at 80 meters. This of course is another possibility. What I did find out, to my delight, is that it's still transmitted. You didn't see that I said I was just going to use 60 meters. I had a go and it didn't complain, transmitting at 2.2 to 1. I knocked the power down to 7 watts, but it transmitted, and amazingly it worked. We'll have a look at that in the log later. Before we do that, let's just have a look here. So minimum SWR, FRES is now 4.9. Like I say, it's a little bit long on 60 meters. It got down to 2.5. FRES on 10 megahertz, 1.5. So like I say, you could use that without any tuner at all. Very interesting. FRES here, here, SWR at your harmonic, 21 megahertz, 3.15. So again, just like the last antenna, very reasonable SWR right along the bands. What you could do, what I thought you could do, is you could optimize this antenna for performance on 30 meters, yeah, because it gradually went up. So it would be very long on 60, and it would of course maybe bring your SWR on 80 down and make it a little bit more manageable. That is one option. It would be a cracking antenna on 30 meters, and it would work on all the other bands. So there's some wiggle room on how you optimize this. You could potentially get your SWR on 80 down. So what I would advise, after my experiences here, is that you take your transceiver along and you obviously use your antenna analyzer, analyze it, but also tune it up and keep a check on the tune on 80. If you want it to radiate on this 3/8 wave, then keep checking how it's tuning up and bring it. You could maybe bring this, optimize it in a different way. So it is a nice SWR here, and maybe your lowest SWR is going to be on 30 meters. We'll just zoom in a bit here. Let's have a look. There we go. And now you can see more clearly how it's a little bit short on 10 and a little bit long on 60 meters. And marker 1 SWR, again it's saying about 10.84 when you zoom in a bit, so a little bit lower, but as you see, KX2 doesn't like that too much at 80 meters. Let's have a look at the log. Here we go, the final log of the day. And as I said, I had a go on 80 meters, and would you believe it, I got my first ever summit to summit on 80 meters, and I got 559 from Tom in Switzerland. So, you know, I'm really happy like that. I sent him 529. I was well chuffed that it does work, contrary to my initial disappointments. Then if we have a look on 5 megahertz, you can see it's getting some really good signal reports here on 5 megahertz. Again, as you would expect from a resonant antenna. Went up to 14 megahertz and it's still transmitting fine, lots of 599s, even though it's not particularly resonant there. It's radiating fine on all these upper bands. So that's it. That's it for this antenna. I do hope your curiosity is tweaked and you want to have a go at this antenna. I hope I've shown you just how easy it is. I think this is one of the easiest antennas you'll ever make. You know, it's just a bit of coax around some ferrites and trimming it down. Of course, you will need an antenna analyzer to get this trimmed properly. and it works for me. I've done hundreds and hundreds of activations now, and it's never let me down. I'm really happy, and I'm also really happy with this new small footprint, particularly this short one with a total length of 13.72 meters. It's a cracking antenna. It's really light. I've got the weight down to 163 grams now for this short antenna, which I think is pretty good for a resonant dipole that will work from 40 to 10. For the slightly bigger antenna, it is the weight is 252 grams. You know, with a wire winder with that little washing line spool, for convenience, I still think, whilst not the lightest options, these are very good options, and they have major advantages over a simple broadband transformer, namely the efficiency. The lower impedance here of your feed point means fewer losses through that transformer. So there are some major advantages, even though it's a little bit heavier. So that's all for this series of videos. Hope you enjoyed it, hope you find it useful, and I'll see you next time.